Sometimes you just want to build the alternate commander that's available. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you decided you wanted to pick up the Aether Drift Commander Precons. And when you picked it up, you realized, Saheeli's on the front, she's fantastic, I want to build the deck with her, and also I may have a very good friend who has an unhealthy obsession with her, thinking about Gale right now. But if you did decide to build her as Saheeli, you may have a card lying around that you took out of the deck, and you may be wondering, what do I do with that card? Well, this is the second ever episode of Separate Ways, where we are going to take the alternate commander that is left over from a deck, and we are going to talk about building them, not as a deck upgrade, but as a full-fledged deck, in the assumption that you already kept the precon and started upgrading it instead. Pia Nalar, Chief Mechanic, is a Teamer 2 and 4 commander that says if your artifacts make face with your opponent, then you get 2 energy counters. And at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 or more energy and create a ginormous vehicle artifact creature token called the Nalar Aetherjet, and it's got Flying and Crew 2, where X is the amount of energy you spent this way. So we have an energy deck that wants to make face with artifact creatures. So, well, there's a sub-theme that was in the original version of the deck that really supports that a ton, and that was the Ornithopter sub-theme, or just the Thopter sub-theme. So here's going to be the basic plan. We want to spend only about $30 making this deck, not counting the price of the commander, because you have that lying around from buying the precon. Then, what we really want to do with what we have available there is make a deck that is focused on punching our opponents lots of times with artificial winged boyos, and then make a ton of energy and then pump all that energy into a giant vehicle and then aim that vehicle directly at one of the opponent's nutsacks. And after we have caused them testicular torsion via vehicular manslaughter, then we can move on to the next victim. Then they have the opportunity to have our Nalar shoved up there. Well, I couldn't think of any way to say ass that was funny here, so we're just going to have to talk about the section about Thopters in this deck. We have Thopter Engineer that enters and makes a Thopter with flying and gives all of our artifacts haste. Whirler Rogue, which gives us 2 1/1 colorless Thopters and can also make sure a creature can't be blocked each turn. Invasion of Kaladesh, which makes a Thopter when it pops onto the board and can also become the Aetherwing Golden Scale flagship, which is a powerful vehicle in its own right. Then we have the Whirler Virtuoso, which makes Thopters by converting energy into it. Brutiglad, which makes mirrors and can convert mirrors into Thopters. Saheeli Sublime Artificer, which makes servos and can convert servos into Thopters. Sharding Sphinx, which makes a ton of Thopters anytime our artifacts deal combat damage with an opponent. Pia and Kira Nalar, which makes Thopters when it touches the battlefield and can sack Thopters to deal 2 damage to any creature or a player. Loyal Apprentice makes Thopters every single time we go into our combat step. Sai Master Thopterus makes Thopters every single time we play an artifact spell. It can also sack artifacts to draw cards. Thopter Fabricator says whenever we draw our second card every turn, we make a Thopter. Efficient Construction says we make Thopters every time we play artifacts. Saheeli the Sun's Brilliance can turn any token, or can create a token that's a copy of anything on our board. We can use this to make a hasted copy of the flagship and then punch somebody with that. We can also use this to make more Thopters if we so choose. And Saheeli Filigree Master makes Thopters by using her -2 and can also draw us cards with her +1. If we use her -4, we get an emblem that says all of our artifacts get 1/1 and cost 1 less to cast. A good thing to do with Saheeli is to just plus her by 1, defend her with Thopters, and then make all your Thopters permanently bigger for the rest of the game, letting Saheeli go straight into the graveyard afterwards. Once you have your gains, she can go into the grave. Along with Thopters, though, our deck's payoffs are built from energy, so we do want to have an energy engine in the deck as well. Bespoke Battle Wagon makes energy, taps creatures, draws cards, and just is a fantastic energy outlet in its own right. Unstable Amulet makes energy and lets us play cards off the top of our deck. Royal Cartographer gives us a landfall and a draw clause with energy. Tune the Narrative gives us energy for the cost of 1 mana and also draws us a card. Is It Genitorium gives us extra energy whenever we make energy. Decotion Module gives us energy every time a Thopter touches the battlefield. any creature, but come on, it's going to be Thopters. We have Attune the Aether, which gives us a land and gives us 2 energy. We have Era of Innovation, which gives us energy every time we pay 1 after playing an artifact or an artificer. Blaster Hulk costs 1 less for every energy we have spent during a turn. It also gives us energy whenever it attacks. We have the Motherlode Excavator, which enters the battlefield and gives us energy based on the number of non-basic lands a player controls. We can also pay 4 of its energy in order to blow up any non-basic land if we need to. Architect of the Untamed gives us landfall energy shenanigans. Aether Refinery doubles the amount of energy we make whenever we get energy. We can also use Nissa World Shaper to get energy off of landfalls, and we can convert that into free casts of spells. Aetherworks Marvel can convert energy into more free casts of spells, while also giving us energy every time a permanent is put into the graveyard. And finally, the Aetherflux Conduit gives us energy every time we cast a spell, and also allows us to pay 50 energy to draw lots of cards and get free casts from there, though this particular deck may not be making much use of that final ability, but in playtests we may see. So there's the core game plan. Make energy, make Thopters, make face, summon Giant Thing, and give people testicular torsion with vehicles. That's the goal. Let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to draw cards to be consistent while trying to keep in line with that goal. We are going to be running a 10-card draw engine, and the name of the game for most of these is making face with Thopters. The Spy Network makes Thopters and gives you a draw every time you make face. Biden of Thassa gives you a draw every time you make face. Coastal Piracy does the same thing. Recon Mission does the same thing. Indomitable does the same thing. And Research Thief does the same thing. They all draw us cards as long as we can make Thopters make face. Then we have Rush of Inspiration, which is a divination that costs energy. Also, it is an MDFC. We have Intrude on the Mind, which is a factor fiction that makes Thopters as well. Then we have Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor, which draw us 2 cards each and cost less mana for all the Thopters we have on the board. Well, it's, again, every artifact we have on the board, but it's gonna be Thopters. Come on. And that's it for the draw engine. Really simple, just punch your opponent lots, draw lots of cards, and hope for the best. That said, let's go ahead and move into the next section, which is how we're going to stop our opponents from enjoying Magic the Gathering. Let's talk about removal and interaction here. We want to try to keep a board state stable, and we want to try to make sure that we are always ahead of our opponents where we can be. Unfortunately, with the style of deck we're in, it's going to be a little hard to make that work, so we have to kind of contort around a few realities. Firstly, we need to make sure we have Electro Siphon in the deck. We want energy from countering spells, and this is the only way to do that as of right now. We also want Launch Mishap in the deck because it's a counter spell that also gives us Thopters. For the same reason, we are going to be running an Access Denied. While these are individually not the best cards in their class in terms of mana cost and payout, they are still very thematic and do a good job in the deck that we are in. We also get to run a Behemoth of Vault 0 as it does make energy, and it does convert energy into killing other cards. Then we get to the cards that are much better than these in my opinion, that are not thematic but certainly are just overall good cards. Negate's a good on-curve mana spell. Return to Nature and Abrade get rid of artifacts, enchantments, creatures, and things from graveyards combined. They're fantastic. We get to run a Beast Within, which gets rid of any kind of permanent, and a Chaos Warp, which does the same thing. Then we have the MDFCs of Colony Ambush and Bridgeworks Battle. Because we can make that giant vehicle, we can use that to our advantage. Make the giant vehicle, crew it, and then hit it with a Colony Ambush, and suddenly we've killed a card on the board pretty easily. And because these take up the mana slot, they don't take up real slots in the deck, so they are fantastic includes. We're also going to run the board wipes of Chain Reaction and Blasphemous Act. Noteworthy, both of these do not get rid of our vehicles. So if we have made Pia Nalar's big vehicle, we can then Chain Reaction on the following turn to get rid of all problematic creatures, replay a single creature, pilot that vehicle, and then punch somebody in the schnoggin. While not the most robust removal package I've ever put together, this should be enough to allow this deck to function in a board with lots of problematic players. That said, let's go ahead and talk about ramp so that we can get enough cards on the board to be a problematic player ourselves. We're only running 10 cards of ramp because even though we're in green, we don't really have a super high mana curve. And we're running 40 lands because we have the benefit of good MDFCs. But let's talk about the ones we are running here for ramp. Sad Robot gives us lands and is an artifact. Search for Tomorrow gives us lands early on in the game. Heat Harvest gives us 2 lands if we can find a way to sack it. Solar Transformer is a great mana rock that gives us energy. Conversion Apparatus does the same thing. Soul Ring in here because who needs friends? We just need arguments. Then we have Arcane Signet because it's just a good on-theme mana rock. Enthusiastic Mechanaut can drop the cost of all of our stuff by 1. That's an artifact, and also it's a flying creature. Our commander wants to see those make face. Rampant Growth because it's a good efficient way to get mana. And then we have the Aetheric Amplifier, which is the 3rd in the trio of energy producing mana rocks Wizards of the Coast has graced us with in recent years. Moving on to the land base, we are actually running fewer green ramps than normal. Even though I normally lean higher on green, the deck's just not running that much green in it at all. Moxfield has this lovely percentage-based list where we can see what our deck is actually running. We don't need that many green basic lands, all things considered. Even though we have some green ramp, it's not a lot. Then we have 5 islands and 4 mountains, and our dual lands. Sheltered Thicket because it can be grabbed as you upgrade the deck with fetch lands. You can use Sheltered Thicket with fetches. Also, it's a cycling land. It's fantastic if you get mana flooded. Then we have the Snarls. We have Frostboil Snarl. We are also going to be running a Vine Glimmer Snarl. And with these, as you upgrade the power of these decks, these end up leaving the decks because you end up having fewer of the lands that these want. But when you're playing these decks at this power level, they end up working out really well, as does Game Trail. Then we have Mossfire Valley and Overflowing Basin and Ferris Lake as great cards for filter lands. Then we have Tangled Islet. It's Sheltered Thicket without the cycling ability. Cinder Glade, Sulphur Falls, Shivan Reef, Hinterland Harbor, Flooded Grove, and Yavimaya Coast. Each and every one of these is a come-to-play untapped land that is a fantastic include at any power level. Let's also make sure the deck has Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Bountiful Landscape, and Escape Tunnel as easy ways to get all the deck's colors, Omni Lands of Command Tower and Exotic Orchard, and then let's have some utility lands in here too. Aether Hub to generate energy early on, Spine Rock Knoll and Mosswort Bridge to generate free casts of cards, then we have Pit of Offerings to get rid of problematic cards in the graveyard, and let's support Aether Hub with a Helios 1 to generate energy on off turns. And that does it for everything in the deck, so now all that's left to do is talk about playing it and racing to the finish line. No, I'm not going to make any racing puns. Fuck Aether Drift. As long as we have access to all the deck's colors in the opening hand and maybe a draw mechanic, we're basically off to the races. Pia Nalar does want us to have Thopters out early, but our deck is clogged with so many ways to make Thopters, we are very likely to draw one early. So let's go ahead and open up, drawing a Terramorphic Expanse. We're gonna go ahead and play that, crack it, and throw it into the grave so that we can get the one land type we are currently missing. Moving into the next turn, we draw an island, and while I would love to be in a great spot right here, we need to get a Thopter, so we need to thin the deck out a little bit. So let's tap this forest, play an Attune with Aether, and it looks like we probably want to get another bit of red mana out of the deck with this, and we'll generate some energy. We draw another land, and as much as I would like to play Pia Nalar right now, she wants our artifact creatures to deal damage, and we just don't have any artifact creatures out yet. So instead, we're going to pay 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put that Conversion Apparatus out on the board. Moving into turn 4, we have a Spine Rock Knoll, which is okay. I guess the thing to do now is to play the Research Thief. It's a little early to play it, but honestly, we need the card that Pia Nalar is going to be able to use. Moving into turn 5, and I think the move is play, not the Knoll. We're going to play the Forest, and we're going to pay 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go ahead and put, we're going to do this like I'm not an idiot, and we're going to put Pia Nalar on the board, and we are going to punch somebody in the face with the Research Thief to draw a card and generate 2 energy. Let's assume that our opponents play a problematic card, and we are going to have to Beast Within that card away so that we do not lose on our turn. We move into turn 6, and we have a Saheeli, which can make Thopters. I think the move now is to play the Knoll and see what we get as our free cast. Actually, you know what? Nissa is a neat free cast to put here, so let's go ahead and put her down here. No, not Nissa. We don't have enough lands right now. I think the move is actually going to be Chain Reaction. This is going to be our break in case of problems card right now. So that's what we're going to pick. Let's go ahead and play a Whirler Rogue, which is going to create 2 Thopter tokens out for us. And now that we have 2 Thopter tokens, we are more likely to be able to do some good stuff later in the game. Swing of the Research Thief to draw a card and add 2 more energy, and we move into turn. You know what? Let's go ahead and sink all of that energy into a single vehicle. The vehicle has crew 2, so we're going to be able to use that in the next turn. We have a Whirler Virtuoso. Let's go ahead and tap Pia Nalar, and let's crew our vehicle. Research Thief and everything get to punch our opponents, drawing us 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, and then we get to make 6 energy because we did that. So let's go ahead and add 6 energy here. We still have access to all of this. I don't think we use the Spine Rock Knoll's chain reaction at this moment, so let's go ahead and play a Mountain. Tap 2, Solar Transformer comes into play tapped, and let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put Saheeli out, and let's tap it like I'm not an idiot. Let's tap the Mountain for a Soul Ring, and let's go ahead and say Saheeli is going to tap the Conversion Apparatus to go up. Scry 1. I'd like the Aetherflux Conduit. We're going to draw that card. For giggles, so we have a good way to protect our Saheeli. Let's go ahead and make another 6/6 token here. As much as I want to try to filter a ton of energy into a giant token, making a 6/6 token that Whirler Rogue can crew to defend Saheeli is just a better move right now. Moving into turn 8, we'll go ahead and call this the penultimate turn. Let's go ahead and pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's put that Aetherflux Conduit on the board. Now when we play stuff, we can go ahead and get free shit out of it. Did we do a land? We did not. Boop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's play the Sharding Sphinx. Now, if our artifacts make face with an opponent, we'll create a 1/1 blue Thopter in response to that. Let's use Whirler Rogue and Pia Nalar to crew the 2 copies we have of our big dudes. And let's swing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 creatures out for a combined total of 12 and 14. We are looking at 17 damage out to somebody. And then the Sharding Sphinx is going to see that and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 untapped dudes, which are going to be able to block for us. We'll also be generating 6 more energy off of that, which we'll be able to spend to make a new thing if we want. And we have 12 energy total thanks to our conduit. We're also drawing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards off of that. We end the turn, and we're going to go ahead and create a vehicle that is a 12/12. Let's go ahead and add 12 counters to it. We're going to sink all of our energy into that. Now we have this just wonderful vehicle here that we can use to defend Saheeli. We can also just go ahead and crack, and we don't have to defend Saheeli. We crack Saheeli, all of our creatures are getting a 1/1 token as well. So, boop. All of our artifacts are getting a 1/1 token. Artifacts cost less. I should have done this before I swung. But yeah, there's our board state. Turn 8, we are looking at many Thopters. We are looking at giant Thopter dudes here. We are in a very, very good spot. So, all that's left to do is talk about what we would do if we were upgrading this deck just a little bit further. If you are upgrading this deck, because Thopters is such a niche sub-theme, you have a couple of options. The first one is adding MDFCs to the deck, making sure that you have more access to more things that your deck should be able to do without having to spend extra slots in the deck on it. Valakut Awakening can give you extra draws, Valakut Recovery gets you free cards out of the graveyard, Hydroelectric Specimen can protect your board state, Pinnacle Monk can get cards out of the graveyard as well, Stump Stomp's another removal spell. You can also protect your board by adding in cards like Heroic Intervention. You could also extend your board by adding in cards like Atrix and Nev, or Doubling Season if you really want for the Thopter tokens. But the big thing is, right now, cards like Stridebraider Automaton are not in budget for decks like this. If you bought the precon, then you have one of these, you can go ahead and throw it in. But if you did not buy the precon, a card like the Stridehanger Automaton, which gives Thopters 1/1 and gives you payoffs for your Thopter shenanigans, is just kind of financially out of reach right now. But it is still a fantastic card. Also, if you have an extra one lying around, an Academy Ruins can be used to make sure that cards like that Stridehanger Automaton do not go away permanently if they are thrown into the graveyard. And well, that's really it for this deck. There was a Thopter sub-theme with Pia Nalar in the original deck, and I'm glad that I had a chance to expand on that a little bit more. So, I want to know what y'all think. And actually, what do you think of the Separate Ways idea? Making sure that the secondary commander, the unchosen commander, always at least gets a video to their name as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and as always, everybody, thank you for supporting my channel. I can barely breathe, so I am gonna hop off. Thank you for watching, and insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Blitzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.